Welcome. This is Westborough Affordable Housing Trust meeting at 3 p.m. on Friday, September 22nd, 2023. This is a remote meeting. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted via remote means in accordance with applicable law. Members of the public may access the meeting via video call link, https://www.microsoft.com/Teams/join a meeting. The meeting ID is 235-084-953-647. And the passcode is capital C, lower I, capital W, capital D, lowercase u, capital Q. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so for reasons of economic hardship and despite best efforts, we will post an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Additionally, the meeting may be broadcast live in real time by Westborough TV via Verizon Channel 28 and Charter Channel 192, or via Westborough TV's online platforms at westboroughTV.org and youtube.com/Westborough TV. Okay, and we are being recorded by Westborough TV. So I'm calling to order. And first thing we have approval of minutes from September 4th, 2023. It was I've reviewed things. I didn't notice any issues. Anybody else have any comments, changes, amendments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for acceptance of the minutes of September 4th, 2023.
So
I saw Hank. Okay, second.
Second.
All right. Alan, can you call the roll?
Sure. Kate,
Storm, yes.
Ed,
Bain, yes.
Pink,
Roush, yes.
and Ken.
Salzman, yes.
And Edinburgh, yes.
Okay, good.
Motion passes 5-0, 5 being present.
Okay, perfect. All right, we're going to move on to some project updates. Obviously, we're quite busy. The first item on the agenda is Baylor Avenue. And Alan, I'm going to turn this over to you because you were working with both Mark and Sharon and others regarding the concern about ground contamination.
Okay, so Mark O'Hagan heard from his lender, who's providing his construction loan, Middlesex Savings Bank, that in 2004, there was a small oil leak from the oil tank, which evidently at that point in time was in the back of the house, half buried and half above ground. Looking through the Mass DEP filings, Northborough Oil, who either made the spill or became aware of it when they were doing the fill, contacted DEP. They hired a licensed site professional and a cleanup firm, and they recovered 1 drum of soil and 1 jar, does not say how big or small the jar was, of surface water with a indication of film, which means there could have been a couple drops of oil in the water to get that, sort of greasy film on the top, or it could have been more than that. We don't know. There was a cleanup that was completed and was signed off on and closed out by Mass DEP. The bank is concerned because there may have been residual contamination left. And because we're rebuilding the house, there's going to be some excavation. So, so they want a licensed site professional to be involved to verify that there's no contamination and if there is, to supervise the removal and the treatment of the soil. So Mark O'Hagan from MCO and Associates contacted an environmental firm he's worked with. They provided him a quote, which was, going to be about, anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500 to review all the DEP paperwork. Another small fee to do any on-site work that they felt was necessary. And then they thought, basically that they might need to do what's known as a phase 2, which is where they do subterraneous or underground work and analysis. And that was going to be another potentially $20,000 or so. Okay. So clearly Mark's saying if we're going to go forward with this, he wants us to cover those costs. I got a referral to Ty and Bond, who is a contracted service provider for the town, specifically for environmental issues. They are licensed site professionals as well. And our lead contact there was at a conference this week. So he doesn't have a formal proposal, but they're preparing one that we should have by end of day Tuesday or Wednesday. That would be a fixed cost of $2,800. That would do the paperwork review. It will include a site visit as well to do some assessment work. And rather than, whereas Mark O'Hagan's firm was just going to send a memo, he's actually going to he's going to provide a formal report. His belief is that if Mass DEP signed off on it, then any residual contamination would be below the level of normal use of the property, right? So, if you were going to plant a tree and you have to dig down 3 or 4 feet, it would have to be below that level, right? And so they're going to look at it because his thought is that if we're doing slab on grade, there really isn't deep excavation. And so they're going to look to see how deep, how deep any residual contamination might be, and whether or not further, basically he's going to be looking for why further remediation wouldn't be necessary. And then they would certify that, and we'd provide that information back to the bank, and we should be good to go forward with the closing, the P&S and the closing. And so our next step would be to authorize, the $2,800 for that phase 1 and analysis and the site visit.
Would we be the client for the Tig and Bond?
Yes.
Super, let's go do it.
All right, Alan, you want to make the motion? You probably have the best wording there with the company.
Yeah, so it would be, hold on. Taking a note. I would move that we authorize Ed to contract with Ty and Bond for $2,800 to do hazardous waste analysis for 3 Baylor Avenue. Pending
Second.
receipt of the formal proposal.
Second? I saw
Second.
Hank say second.
Hank
Okay,
seconded.
discussion and questions on that.
Okay.
Alan,
Yes, Hank. Ken.
Alan, do we have access to the sign off from the EPA? Because my experiences with LSPs and cleaning up a site before you can leave it, whatever, there had to have been borings done, and not just like a look around site analysis, because just because if we went slab on grade for new construction, that our drainage and sewer and water will probably be deeper in places anyway. So I agree with the $2,800 to have the professionals review what the EPA gave, to the oil company, the landowner, and I'm sure there was an insurance company involved. We should be able to get that and If you could get a copy of it, we can read it ourselves, but I'm sure that's the same thing that T&B is going to be looking for to review.
So I'll
Um,
send, we have that. I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
It's not, it was never EPA. It was just Mass DEP. So it was at that level.
Yeah.
The contamination was limited to a small area behind the house. So it wouldn't interfere with excavation for utilities in the front of because those would be in the front of the property. And there was at least one monitoring well.
Okay.
Highland Bond is wondering, given what he scanned the report, and he said, given the report, it's unclear why he said it's unclear why they wanted a monitoring well for groundwater contamination, given the location and the nature and how small the leak was. My thought for that was that part of the property at 3 Baylor is in the feed zone for Lake Chauncey on the federal maps. The perimeter of the area of impact for Lake Chauncey as far as the watershed goes, and also given the height of the water table and potentially proximity to wetlands, that at the time DEP wanted a monitoring well. So they're going to do, typically an LSP, as I understand it, the phase 1 is the paperwork review. But they're going to do a little bit of site work to determine whether or not we would have to do any digging and any further core sampling.
Sure.
The report is quite extensive. I think it's about 500 pages.
Yeah.
If
it's a
memory
lot.
serves, I was flipping
Yeah,
through it.
so-
But yeah, if you can send that out to everybody,
Yeah.
just good so people can familiarize themselves, with what was done by DEP. Other questions?
I didn't want to put it in the packet because I didn't want to scare everyone.
Right.
You
Uh,
get the meeting packet and it's 600 pages long.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you. All right, we have a motion to appropriate $2,800 or authorize me to sign off on a $2,800 invoice / proposal from T&B. So, Alan, can you do a roll call?
Sure. Kate,
Storm, yes. Thought I was muted.
Ed,
Bain, yes.
okay, thank you. Hank,
Roush, yes.
Ken,
Salzman, yes.
and Edinburgh, yes. So the motion passes. It's 505 being present.
Okay, so I think you've covered everything at Baylor Avenue. Anything else? The PNS, I think we're all set, save for this one issue with the potential ground contamination. Okay, but they've ironed out. Sharon and Kathy have ironed out. I think all the other issues, especially the one concerning we had a discussion about capping subsidy. Okay, next, 6 Beach Street. We are now proud owners of 6 Beach Street as of Tuesday. And since then, it is completely empty, right up to the last minute. They were carting away a few last things. Since then, I've gone in and I put some of this in an email. Put in some light bulbs that had been burned out just so that we could have some light on inside. So we will keep the electric on. I'm also have and you can see it. I think I just blinded everybody. Some motion detector lights that I'm going to put around on 2 corners of the house. just for illumination if somebody starts to walk around it. Reason we didn't do it on, the reason I think we need it more so on beach is it is because of all the foliage and just the setting of the house could lend itself to people coming in for whatever reason. What I talked to DPW. We should have the water shut off sometime next week. We can then do a drain of the whole house, as part of winterization. I have and we can take it up now. I have a proposal for from a landscaper, AAR Landscaping, which I believe I'd sent out. That would be $1,500 to really clear the property, particularly in the front and along the sidewalk area there, as well as mow the sides immediately around the house, not the back fields. I'm not worried about those. I just got that one estimate. My neighbor uses that company. We recently used that company just to do hedge trimming and some weeding in our property, and it was $600. So I think the $1,500 is reasonable given the state of the property. It's pretty bad. It's going to be a lot of work to clear out everything. What else is there? The gas is turned off. I think that's sort of where we stand now. Or that's the status right now.
Okay. So I'm comfortable moving to authorize the 1,500. Actually, I was gonna say, I would suggest we authorize up to $2,500 for costs associated with securing and caring for the property. The only thing I would suggest is there's a Westborough High School student, Tristan Bond, who does yard work.
Mhm.
And he and his crew might be able to do it for a bit less money. If you want, we could reach out to him and get, but just a second quote, but we could authorize the spending and authorize you to make that decision, Ed.
Okay. If you
If you
can
think it's
forward
worth it.
me, if you can forward me his contact information, I'll see if I can get him over there tomorrow. We did get a complaint from one neighbor and another lady who lives on the corner house, the big white house. That's the corner of South Street and excuse me, Beach. Just flagged me down very nicely and just ask, are you the new owners? I explained to her who we were. And she mentioned about the bushes overgrown on the sidewalk and that seniors from Beaumont Street development can't really walk on the sidewalk. And I told her we're in the process of getting it cleaned up.
Yeah,
So
you got to get those guys to just all that stuff in front, get them to cut it all the way to grade. I mean, just chop it all down. Don't trim it up. Chop it all down because it's going to be a year or so before we're able to get in there and really do much.
mhm.
So we might just do something that will last as long as possible.
Okay. Yeah, there's really no garden per se there. It's just
Just
bushes.
chop all that stuff. Make go in there with a chainsaw. Chop it all down to grade.
Okay. So I would move to authorize up to $2,500 for securing and managing the property at 6 Beach Street.
Second?
Second.
I'll second it.
Oh,
Can you,
Sure, I'll do the roll call vote.
yeah, please.
Kate,
Storm, yes.
Ed,
Bain, yes.
Hank,
Ouch, yes.
Ken,
Salzman, yes.
and Edinburgh, yes. Motion passes 5-0, 5 being present.
Okay. I'm going to step away for 1 second. I just need to get a drink of water. My tickle in my throat. Be right back.
Hey, Alan, do you know if this property, if this Beach Street property is in the Westborough Historic District?
It is not in the downtown historic district. It is in the Vintonville Historic District. And it's,
Yeah.
but itself is not a historic property. So redevelopment would just need to conform with the historic nature of the neighborhood, which would be workforce housing that is architecturally indescript.
Okay, back. Thank you.
So we don't have to worry about a delay.
I don't think we have to worry about it. But we do need to go before the historical commission.
Okay, so somewhere along the line, we probably ought to just apply for the darn demo permit and get it wrapped up so that we don't have to worry about it.
Yep. I think when we have a sense of what we're doing, that would be the way to go.
Okay, moving on.
Hey, Ken,
yeah.
And
Yeah,
Ed
Hank.
went through the house and it's not worth trying to save it.
No, take it down. Get rid of it.
I mean, the consensus is tear it down, so we gotta just, I think we gotta proceed on the assumption we're gonna tear it down and just start doing the things we need to do to prepare for that.
Makes sense.
Okay, I would just say that we should get try to get a plan in place of what we want to do with the property. Because, bringing somebody in, it may be, as opposed to doing two projects, one is a demo, the other is a construction
Yeah,
by two different companies.
I agree, and we shouldn't tear it down, but we ought to start going through the steps that we need to get it torn down. And what concerns
Okay.
me about the demo delay, I mean, if you get a demo permit and it gets bought off, then you can go tear it. It's probably good for a couple of years, so you can go tear it down anytime you want. But
Okay,
if you to pull a demo delay, they can delay you for 6 months or a year. You don't want to run into that unexpectedly.
right. Okay, I've already talked to Historical Commission, to Christian Hedrick there about this.
Until you go through the formal
I know,
process, you're not done.
I know. I'm
Okay.
just giving you a status.
Well-
And all right, why don't
So-
we move on to Rogers
But
Road?
I'm gonna ask, Hank, can you gather the information we need for the permit and we can authorize that at our next meeting?
Sure. I'll check it out and bring it to the next meeting.
Thank you. Okay, why don't we move on to Rogers Road development? And actually, there's a couple of issues that I guess it's sort of, well, let's just move on to Rogers Road. Hank and or Kate?
Yeah, we're on the board of directors agenda for the last Tuesday in October to show, to go over what, ask to get them to buy in a little more strongly to wanting to go ahead and do something. We have a quote from a consultant that amounts to $140,000 to do the work necessary to figure out what can be done, how to fund it, take us through. So we need to get that buy-in, and then Kate and I are meeting with Maureen Pavolis, representing the Housing Authority. Next Wednesday, we're meeting once a month, kind of going over what's happening and trying to get the folks at the Housing Authority engaged in the process. My judgment is they're not strongly engaged at this point.
All right, now you were gonna, I just want to get some dates straight. You're saying, excuse me,
Just a minute, I'll tell you what the date is. I've got it on my calendar.
is it the 26th? No.
It's October.
Oh, October.
It's October 24th.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
October
that's the one.
24th, 3 o'clock p.m. At the Rogers Road office.
Right, and I have that on my calendar already. All right, good.
And Maureen I'll be going over a preliminary slide deck on Wednesday. And after we've gone over it and updated it, we'll send it out to the committee.
Okay. Yeah, we have another meeting before then, so we can,
Yeah, we also have another meeting before then. And
Excellent. So,
Okay.
one of the things I'd like to add to your agenda in your conversations with the Westborough Housing Authority is, being the wonk that I am, I did a little research. And in the packet is the town meeting article from Acton. That was the successful home rule petition to waive 30B for the Acton Housing Authority. And so what I'm going to suggest is that we raise this with the Housing Authority and offer to assist them in preparing the warrant and getting it on the annual town meeting, prepare an article for the annual town meeting warrant in March. And that it can be cover any and all, not only new development, but capital repairs and renovations for the properties
Yeah,
at Rogers Road. And the
I
reason
think we're
being,
very premature.
nope. The reason is because then if we're going to go out to bid for consultant and have any other work done, it waives the 30B requirements. And it makes it easier and more cost effective. It also gives us the ability to start in parallel to potentially start looking at funding, particularly with a housing bill and a bond issue expected to be going through the legislature in the next month or so.
Yeah, and that's the stuff we're looking at hiring a consultant to help us do. I talked with Kate and I talked with the Acton Housing Authority in detail, and can go back and get more detail. They extensively use consultants to help with this stuff. Navigating the funding with the state and such is very difficult. We don't have a clue as to what the financials might look like to do something over there. We don't know if it's feasible financially, geographically, or in any other way. So we can go home rule petition, get town meeting approved, go forward with to tell anybody what we're trying to get home rule petition about.
Okay, well, but the interesting thing about the
it
home
could be that one can go
rule
with a generic home rule petition.
but what's interesting
but I
about the
doubt
home what's interesting about the home rule petition is it doesn't just cover the development. It covers any maintenance and rehabilitation work as well. And so
Yeah, I understand.
even if we're not ready to move forward on
yeah,
even if
let,
we're
let
not
Alan finish.
even if we're not ready to move, even if it's premature for thinking about building new housing, knowing that the housing authority has projects underway and his projects queued up, whether it's, plumbing, some of the plumbing or electrical work that's in their queue, this might give them some additional, some opportunity for savings on those contracts.
Alan, with the housing authority sponsor the article?
Yes.
I'll make sure we suggest to the board that they
Cutting in and out.
Yeah,
So
you're
if I
cutting in
understand,
and
Hank, you're willing to suggest to the board that they consider this, and you'll let them know that. I'm
Yeah, I mean,
willing to
I'll
help
make it
them
part of the
prepare.
slide deck. I mean, we'll put a line item in the slide deck and we'll talk about it. My personal judgment is they're not close to being ready to do that, but I hope I'm wrong.
Okay. But you have the, obviously Alan in the pack, put in the articles as they were posted for the Acton Town meeting, so.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, all right, thank you. I don't know if we want to talk, well, hold on. No, we'll hold on that. Senior needs assessment. We have a meeting next Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, the 26th, at 2 p.m. Hopefully, we're getting close to trying to publish recommendations. Obviously, and we'll discuss this more down, in a couple of items about the potential of a new community center that would obviously work its way into this, because one of the senior needs is that we have, seen is to have a better community center or senior center. And we have some data on that from seniors. So, once we have that report, that'll be distributed appropriately to, everybody in town. So I don't know if we'll have something by the end of 26. Kim was supposed to send out a grid of the points that we were going to talk about, but I haven't seen it yet. So that's where we are with that. Okay. All right, we're right on schedule. First time home buyers program. Alan, I see you've been doing some questions. It's in the pack about conflicts of interest, et cetera. So you want to bring us through where we are with that?
Sure. So what's in the packet is we've talked about the first time home buyers program not only being available to Westborough residents, but also being available to town employees. And the question there is there's state law and ethics rulings that your employment with the municipality can't be for personal benefit. And so I submitted a request for opinion to the State Ethics Commission, and that request and response is in the packet. The response was that provided the employee is not involved in administering the program, it is not considered a special benefit, so long as it's available to all town employees that meets the same criteria, right? So as we go forward and define the criteria for qualification, so for example, the income and asset limits would be the same whether you're a resident or a town employee. But if you're a town employee and not a resident, you'd still be eligible, right? So, but the other criteria would be the same. We can make this, we can make this available to town employees as well as current residents. So getting that, I started on the next step. I've actually found 5 or 6 other communities with first-time homebuyers programs with their policies, the qualifications, how their programs work, as well as even applications and paperwork checklists of things they need. And so right now I'm building a matrix because I know Kate's really busy and she doesn't come home at night after attending her classes saying, gee, if only I had enough information to build another matrix. So I'm working on that. And once I pull that all together, I will schedule time with Kate to meet. We'll walk through and come up with a recommendation of what our program should look like. And in a sense of how we can administer it in an efficient way.
That's
so
great.
that's
You also, at some point, I'm trying to see whether it's in that the Ethics Commission, you were looking to extend the radius of town employees, like, because town employees wouldn't have to be residents to benefit from this, but there's a certain, I guess, radius from the center of town or whatever they consider the center of Westborough, of where people live that they would consider part of the pool of potential town employees.
No.
Right.
We had done some, when we did the housing assessment work with the working group before the trust was created, we looked at how far away, what the commutes were for town employees.
Yeah, I know, I did that.
Yeah. So, but this would simply be if you are a town employee, and it might be if you are a town employee whose regular work is so many hours or more.
Right.
We can talk about that. And you meet the income and asset qualifications, you qualify even if you're not a resident of Westborough.
Okay.
So there wouldn't be a
You don't
distance
have to be
limitation.
within a certain radius of Westborough
No,
either.
there wouldn't be a radius requirement.
Okay. I don't know where I saw that. Apologize if I'm getting people confused. So, all right. So for town employees, there's no geographic limitation of where they live currently, whether they're in town or in they commute in from wherever. Okay.
Correct. And we're defining that, right? What's interesting is a lot of the larger communities that have these programs don't have a residency requirement at all.
Oh, okay.
The Boston pilot program did. The statewide Mass Dreams program has a mixed residency requirement. But there are a lot of good options. So we'll have it all in a matrix. We'll be able to look through, and then we'll share the full matrix with everyone and sort of what our recommendation is.
Yep. I know there's, as we all know, that there's a significant amount of apartment dwellers, rental units in town. That's where most of our growth has come from over the past 10 years, 10, 15 years. So, that could be very much a, the market that would love to stay in town, but would like to build equity. So, all right. Thanks for your investigation on that. All right. Next item on the agenda is the community center / senior center that is coming up at town meeting. And you put this on, Alan. I don't know. Is there people aware that on one of the articles on the warrant is to purchase 1,500, I guess it's Union Avenue, which is where Boston Sports Club is in, down in Bay State Commons. It's that large two-story building where Steinmart used to be, and Boston Sports Club is on the second floor. And to use that, particularly the first floor, as a new senior center, and the second floor, it's mostly been talked about as for recreation use, although things are very embryonic at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more accurate to say that to use it as a multi-generational community center.
Yeah.
The general thought is that the upper floor, which was the Boston Sports Club, could immediately be occupied and used by the recreation department to expand their programming starting in the spring, with little or no work, little or no build out or renovation, aside from the investigation or repairs that would need to be made to get the pool safe to use.
Right.
And that would be a decision that the community would help make. The plan is to acquire the building and do a townwide charrette process to get broad input from the community on what they'd like to see in the building. The first floor of the building is, I believe, if you're not going to move walls to go to the loading dock area, it's about 32,000 square feet of open space. And so there's room to bring in dedicated space for seniors, activity rooms, meeting spaces, potentially arts venues. There's a lot of potential there. And so the thought is to get the view of the community. The reason I put this on our agenda is one of the questions that the town has already been receiving is, well, what's going to happen with the current senior center?
Right.
Could the town sell it to help pay for the build out, et cetera, of the community center? And my thought was that, given that that building and land is adjacent to the housing authority property that we're looking to develop, if the trust were to acquire that building and the property it sits on, it would give us a lot more flexibility and capability for the Rogers Road project. And whether we would keep the building as is, keep part of the building and integrate it into new construction, because it does have some reusable facilities in there, such as the commercial kitchen. The commercial kitchen, we might not need one, but the plumbing, there's enough plumbing there that you could have a laundromat. You know, we could provide some common area and service areas for the tenants along Rogers Road, or remove the building to make room for, you know, whatever we decide with the housing authority could be that project, and provide that land. And so we're not, what I've included in the packet was a letter not asking for the property, but simply letting the select board know that we are interested in acquiring the property and would want to be part of that discussion when the select board looks at how to, you know, what disposition there would be for the property down the road. You know, realistically, you know, it's going to be a year, probably a year before the charrettes are done and there's decisions and there's cost estimates on what the build out would be. And then the build out will take time. So, you know, we're probably in theory looking at 18 months to 2 years before the senior center would move at all. You know, just sort of the government construction and building timelines, and the budgeting process. And so, you know, and that's, you know, maybe during that time, but maybe not until that time, the select board would take a look at what potential uses the town might have for the property. And if the town has no identifiable need or use, then what are the disposition options? And we just want to be part of that discussion. And so I put the memo in the packet.
You're right. There's a proposed draft of a letter that would go to the select board, and subject is disposition of current senior center. And basically, it's just saying what Alan summarized, which is we want to be, we'd be very interested in being part of that discussion, since you know, it's adjacent to some of the development we may be looking to do. So I think this gives us, you know, just another, I should say, opportunity that may make it easier to develop some affordable housing, particularly seniors. But my view, why don't we, so do you want to make a motion on that to for me to send that letter to the select board?
Sure, there is one change that needs to
I
be
haven't
made.
seen the letter.
Oh, it's in the packet.
It's
Yeah, I haven't seen the packet either, so, but
okay.
but I mean,
That was the
again,
other-
I mean, we're gonna be meeting in a couple of weeks. I mean, do we have to, we'll be meeting before town meeting, right? And
Yes.
so we get time to read the packet, read the letter,
Okay,
make any comments, any changes, and then agree to send it.
that's fine. If we want to postpone any action on that item, we'll just put it on next, you know,
Okay,
that, and include the next draft of it in the packet.
okay. Yeah, because
Okay.
there was one change to it, which is I referred to the recently, the recently decided bond issue for public housing, public affordable housing, but the governor hasn't actually presented the bond issue to the Senate yet. So it's the intended or pending bond issue. And just for context, the Senate is pushing the governor to propose a housing bond bill with $1.8 billion specifically for the rehabilitation and creation of additional public affordable housing. So this is money that would all go to housing authorities to rehab aging units and to increase inventory. So it is a significant shift in policy as far as the role of public housing goes in the Commonwealth. And so the timing's great, because by the time that all came to fruition, hopefully we're far enough along with the housing authority, we can fill out the application and get funds on that joint project, right? Okay. I was hoping that the letter would be approved just so that our interest would become part of the Q&A and the community discussion about the community center. But if folks are more comfortable waiting, we can wait.
Okay, yeah, town meeting is the 16th. We're going to be meeting on, well, that's another thing I want to discuss. Uh,
We'll get there.
we'll get there. Um, by the way, I just realized now, on the meeting agenda, the times are started at 9 a.m.
So we posted a revised agenda
Okay, with the new times.
with the correct time.
Okay,
We
good.
both missed it, but anyway, so we'll
All
hold
right.
off on the letter then.
Yeah, I think until people have had a chance to
Okay.
to take a look at it. It's just we have nothing to lose and everything to gain, I believe.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, next item on the agenda was budget and finance. There's
Okay.
also part of the packet had
Let me.
some of the numbers that we are looking at.
So I'm gonna share my screen for a moment.
Yep.
Okay, it's Teams. Got to think about how you do that. Okay. Okay, so can everyone see what I'm sharing?
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I
Okay.
can see it.
So what I started to do is sort of put together some fiscal reports that we would generate quarterly, so that we have a good sense of where we are financially and against benchmarks, as well as it could be posted so the community would know what's going on. And so Ed, Leah Talbot, finance director for the town, provided effectively all of the transactions for the trust going back to our inception. And I broke it down into fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23, and really came up with sort of a revenue and expense form, and then a form that tracks assets and liabilities. So not atypical from any business type stuff, but with a couple of slight differences. And so when we look at the end of when we look at from a incoming revenue in fiscal 22, we had the 3 payments that came from the Del Webb Chauncey Lake Stabilization Fund, and we received an initial payment from the projects from the special permit zoning mitigation. And then I broke out our expenses basically by project, right? With overhead expenses for the IT services and the website. All of our legal services up till June 30th had been specific to projects. So we did that, and sort of come down to the bottom. You'll see our rental assistance program was there. The consultants report for the Residences Westborough Station, and as of June 30th, 2023, our total cash balance was $2,263,689.57. I then looked at what was encumbered, which is money that we had voted to spend or had signed contracts or agreements to spend, that had not, where the checks hadn't been issued, which gives us a net cash balance for the year. Okay,
And
so
that encumbered fund, yeah, go ahead, Alan.
So you'll see where that comes into play. Let me jump forward. So then, what are our assets and liabilities? And as importantly, what percentage of our assets have we committed? Because remember, when if we have any one project that's going to use 50% of our assets, we need select board approval, or if our total asset commitment hits 80%, any further commitment of funds and assets would require select board approval. So here, as if we look at at the end of fiscal year 23, we still own Baylor Avenue. It's an asset in addition to the cash we have. And then, the liabilities are, the money at that point that we had committed to spend on the different projects, right? And that sort of gives us an understanding that, right now, our total encumbered funds are, 25% of our assets is where we're running. And so this is my initial stab at quantifying the financial status of the activities and the financial status of the trust in a way of looking at it. It doesn't have to be the final. I ask people to look it over and provide feedback to me on suggested changes, and I can reformat that. Hopefully before the next meeting, we'll be able to get, final numbers through September and be able to do a report through the first formal report through the first fiscal quarter of fiscal year 24. Any questions? So for example, since we closed on Beach Street,
That'll come out of encumbered and go into
500,000 will become
assets.
the 500,000 will become an expenditure, and the value of the property will show up as an asset.
The valuation of assets, are you using lower of cost or market?
I was using what is on the assessor's report.
Yeah, I would, again, we can talk about it, but I would suggest we ought to be using a cost metric.
Okay, I can do that.
Because that, the assessor numbers and any kind of estimated market value are all subject to judgment and hard to justify.
Well, no, but I mean, the assessor, it's not hard. The assessments are based on a very specific set
I
of rules.
understand how he does assessments, but the actual market value of properties, the selling prices of properties often exceeds the assessed valuation that's being carried.
Right. So
Just simpler if we just keep it.
I'm comfortable.
What
See,
did it cost us?
Okay, so I guess I'm
Okay.
comfortable using the assessed value because, every 3 years there's a certification that it's within 5% of market, and value is generally higher than the assessed value. I wouldn't want to use cost because then the asset value of Baylor Avenue, it's $48,000, which is what we paid for it. But it's got an assessed value that said if we were to sell it, it's not unreasonable to expect we get something close to the assessed value for that property. And if we were going to borrow against the property, we could use the assessed value, or we could do an independent appraisal at that time. The appraisal would be much closer to the assessed value than it would be to our purchase price. So that was my thought about using, based on what the assessor records are. And then it also year to year, we held Baylor Avenue over the course of a fiscal year. It had an assessed value at one level in 1 year and a higher level the next year. And the assessed value is a reasonable way to approximate that.
Okay, this is great work. I have some additional, I sign off on all expenditures. We do have some additional things that, since I think this is as the end of June.
Yep, this was the data you got me through the end of June, Ed.
Right. So, this is 6 months. I'll try to make sure we keep it up to date since we're now, well into September. So that gives us, we would want to do another one in a few weeks.
Okay, but are people
We'll bring it up to date?
Yeah. So if everyone can look through it, are you comfortable with the format and the layout? I think it might, based on our conversation here, it might be good to have a notes column right? So like when you see the value of Baylor Avenue, we note how we came up with that and how we're tracking it. Um, things of that nature, right? Like I
You could al-
wouldn't when we move Beach Street to an asset, I wouldn't move it as an asset at $500,000 because that's probably not an accurate representation of market. Well, it might be a representation of market. We wouldn't know that without an appraisal. But it's different than the assessed value, right? But we can work with that and modify that over time as we get comfortable with it.
Yeah, it's actually 505,000 with, if we were going to look at cost, because we did a 5,000 deposit.
The 5,000 deposit was accounted for in the prior year.
Okay.
That was before June 30th.
Oh, okay. You're doing fiscal. Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, the other way you can do notes is just for space considerations is you can do a footnote if it's
Yep.
Just, and then put something under, at the bottom of the page for any notes. But otherwise, I like this. Any comments that we have?
Okay. If people have, Hank, I'll resend you the packet so you have this. So any other comments you have, just send me directly.
Okay,
Okay.
All right.
All
The fall town meeting, next item. Monday, October
Okay.
16th, we have 2 articles.
Yeah. So this was presented to Advisory Finance Committee. 6 were present. They voted 6-0 to support it. The question is, how many times will I be updating the article numbers in the presentation? Because we're now back to being articles 15 and 16. As some other one article is being pulled and other articles have been combined. So as of draft 6 of the warrant yesterday, it's there. But I thought, and I've refined the presentation from the point where we provided it to the select board. So I just wanted to share those here. We start out with the objectives of the articles and a summary. Because most people might not be familiar with the Housing Partnership Committee, reminding people of its mission and responsibilities. Then we cover what's in Article 17, what's in Article 18, and then the impact of these 2 articles together. That it empowers the select board to delegate the responsibility to the trust, empowers the trust to act as the Housing Partnership Committee or create a subcommittee to do that work, and that the select board can revoke the delegation at any point in time. So it's not a permanent change, it just gets it going. Since our last presentation, I did some research, and this update has been shared with the select board, that when we look at our data dashboard communities and some of the best practice communities that MHP identifies with respect to housing trusts, the majority have combined the functions of the Housing Partnership Committee with the trust to avoid the redundancies. Lexington, Needham, Northborough, and Southborough still have separate partnership committees from their trusts. Northborough probably won't change because the trust was created before the state law, so it's a separate independent 501c3. It's not a department or an agent. It's not what's known as a municipal agent. It's not a municipal entity and an agent of the town. It's an independent organization. And then Reading and Westwood still lack any form of affordable housing trust. So they have a partnership committee, but no trust. And again, we this time in legible text, we reiterate the benefits for everyone.
That was mentioned to us.
Okay, so we've been invited to present to the planning board on October 3rd.
Yep.
If someone would like to join me, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'm pretty sure. Let me just double check.
2 of us can go. We can have 3 people. I get a growly no way from Kate.
It's more of a, that's a biz, like, that's a, just, I'm like triple booked, so, sorry.
Yeah, no, I can figure she's busy. I can tell by the look on her face. So, and really the point of going to the planning board is because the partnership committee is supposed to be working, to support the work of the planning board and to guide developers coming before the planning board. So there's interaction there and that function. And so it's more awareness for the planning board on how we see this helping the processes and cooperating with the business one stop for the permitting work. And as I said to Mark, having another elected board vote in support of it doesn't hurt when we get onto floor of town meeting. So, okay.
Hopefully, this is a non-controversial issue. Now, will the select board take a position on this, Alan?
Yeah, the select board will do its regular vote of support
Vote.
after we close the
Okay.
warrant on Tuesday.
Okay. All right. Any questions about, well, the other issue, it's a select board issue, but, or article rather, is the transfer of $950,000 from, I'll call it mitigation money from the Highlands
No,
to settle,
it is-
the issue of their affordable housing
Okay.
problem.
It's important we're really clear on this. It is settlement funds.
Yes, settlement funds
So,
that are directly for affordable housing, since they don't have any affordable housing there.
and those funds would come to us, they would be restricted for the creation of net new affordable housing units.
Right.
So,
So, and basically that, yeah, so that'll come up, but that'll be a select board motion. All right, I think we're finished with our regular agenda. And we're going to go into executive session for the purposes of doing approved executive session minutes of July 10th and July 13th. So,
okay, so I move we enter into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to act under the authority of the trustees to approve executive session minutes of July 10th, 2023 and July 13, 2023.
second,
Ed, no, Ed, you have to declare whether or not.
yes, it would be in the interest of the trustees to so enter into that executive session.
Okay. And Ed, you seconded?
Yes.
Okay. Just making a note here. Okay. Roll call vote. Pete,
Storm, yes.
Ed,
Payne, yes.
Hank,
Roush, yes.
Ken,
Ken?
he's got to unmute.
Sorry, I was muted. Salzman, yes.
And Edmer, yes. So thank you very much, Westborough TV, because by vote of 5-0, we are entering executive session. If everyone can exit and re-enter with the other link.
Okay, see you on the flip side.